In this video, I'm going to show you how to upload your book to KDP, aka Kindle Direct Publishing, which is Amazon's publishing platform. And I'm going to show you how to publish both an ebook and a paperback. And I'm going to walk you through all the steps. It's super simple. I'm about to set up my ebook for pre-order, so I'm going to show you a real life example of how to do that, and then also how to transfer all that info over to a print copy and connect the two. Now, just keep in mind, you can't actually do pre-orders for the print copies as of the time of recording this video, but maybe that'll change in the future. I don't know, but you can do a pre-order for an ebook, or you could just immediately publish it, whatever works for you. All right, I'm gonna jump over and just show you my screen. The first step is to make an account. So if you don't have one already, you can sign up, otherwise sign in right here. Once you're logged in, you're going to automatically come to the bookshelf page right here, which if you have uploaded books in the past would show all those books below. We're gonna stay on the bookshelf tab for the uploading process, but you could also definitely browse, and I would recommend browsing the reports, community, and marketing tabs, as well as your account at the top where you'll add your tax info to be able to get paid. And also highly recommend checking out the help section. There's so much valuable info here if you browse through the information on the left side. And then of course you can also always contact them if you have questions that aren't answered here in all of their different help categories. But again, we're sticking with the bookshelf today. It's so easy to upload a book. The very first step is, as you can see at the top here, clicking the create button. And before I click that, let me just point out, you could also click the create a book button here and browse some of the other helpful tools and resources that they add for people who are new to KDP. But I'm going to go ahead and click the create button. Just know that this has actually recently been updated. It's pretty cool how they've added everything here. So we're going to focus on the Kindle ebook first, but just know that you can actually pull all the information you enter for ebooks over to the print versions later on, and it's very quick and easy. I'll show you that at the end. And then also keep in mind that they do have the Kindle Vella option currently, as well as a series page option, which I can also show you at the end of this video. We're gonna click create ebook. To create an ebook, there's only 3 pages you have to fill out: the details page, the ebook content, which is the cover and manuscript, and then the pricing page is the last page before you click publish. So let's start with the details page. I'm gonna walk you through each section really quick. First, we have language. Now I'm publishing in English, but you can see there are many other options here. That's pretty self-explanatory, so let's move on to the book title. This is something that cannot be changed after the book is published, so just keep that in mind. We are going to publish the second edition of The Secret Gift today, and it did originally have a subtitle, so I'll show you what that would look like here. It was a villain origin story. Now this is optional, so I may choose to come back and remove this later if I decide to. As long as I haven't pressed the publish button, that's fine. This is not set in stone until we hit publish. The next section is for a series, so if you don't have a series, just skip this step. But if you do have a series, you would click add series details, and then depending on if you have already set it up or not, you would click either new or existing. Now I did set mine up, so I would normally click existing, but if you haven't yet, click create series, and then if it's main content, meaning it's like number 1, 2, 3, 4, and so on, you would click this button. If it's related content, such as a prequel or short story, that's when you would click this button. So click main content, and then go to the series setup and fill that out. But I'm going to show you what it looks like when it's already filled out by clicking existing series, and these are my existing series. So I'm going to go to the Queen's Rise series. This is book 1. It's main content, so I'll click main content, and you can always click edit series details, and then it'll bring you to the series setup page, which will again just ask you some basic questions. This is very self-explanatory, but if you realize that you need to fix the series title name, that would be here. Once you feel like everything looks good with your series, you just go back to your bookshelf, and it's going to show the book that you are currently setting up right here, and you'll go continue setup. A lot of people think like you have to do this all at once. You can always come back to it. You can always scroll to the bottom, save a draft, save your progress, and come back to it. But we're going to go ahead and move on from the series section to edition number. This is optional. Do not enter this unless you have previously published a book. But I'm a good example of I have actually published this book before. So as you can see here, I should be putting the number 2 because this is a second edition. The next section is for the author. So this is going to be where you put your name or your pen name like this. And if you co-authored the book, you would put the co-author right here and their information, or you could also technically include your editor, anybody who did a foreword, your illustrator, your narrator, and so on. Typically, you would only see this for a co-author, an illustrator, or a narrator. I don't usually see the others listed as contributors, but you definitely can if you'd like to. Then the next section is the description. So this is your book description that shows up on Amazon, and I actually saved mine in a Google document. So I'm going to go ahead and copy and paste that in just like this. If it looks a little bit weird with formatting, you can go in and fix it. And as you can see, it already pulled through the bolded information, but you could also add that later on if you needed to, or you could do italicized, underlined, bullet points, and so on. The nice thing about the description is that you can always change this. So if you want to put in a placeholder just to move on to the next page, you definitely can, but make sure that you fill in the final blurb before you click publish. The next section is your publishing rights. And unless you actually did get a public domain work, you should own the copyright for your work. So this box will typically always be checked. But if you have any questions, you can always read their little helpful notes here on the side. And then the following section is your keywords. So there is a lot of help here as well about keywords, and there are some rules that you can click this and read up on. But typically to do this, you're going to think of the type of stuff that people type in the search bar when they're looking for a book like yours. So for example, young adult fairy tale retelling, maybe clean young adult books. I'm just guessing right now, but I would recommend you actually go to Amazon and start typing in the Kindle store bar here to look up what do people search. Fantasy. Great. Let's do young adult fantasy books. That's a long tail keyword like this, for example. And even though this does say optional, these are things that help people find your book in the store. So I would highly recommend taking the time to research and fill in all of these. You can also change these at any time. So you can come back to them over time and see if different keywords help you. But for right now, let's move on to categories. And you get 2 categories on Amazon to start. And it will explain to you why these are so important. But think of this like your virtual bookshelf. Like if you were going to Barnes & Noble to shop for a book, this would be the section of the bookstore where people are going to look for books like yours. So it's really important to get this right. I would recommend browsing these and taking your time to really look through them. You can always close them and check out a different section. You should have a general idea of where to start. Like I know my book is young adult, so I'm going to start here. But then you're going to see a lot of other categories open up. And again, I really recommend that you browse all of these. I took a lot of time to look through them. Some of them even open up further like this. So mine is actually a fairy tale and folklore type story, and it is a general one. I would call it an adaptation if it was a full retelling, but this one is more general. It's not a full retelling so much as has a lot of Easter eggs from Snow White. And remember, we get 2 categories. So it's going to show your first category here. And if you ever think, you know what, I don't think this is quite right, you can always click remove. But then I'm going to add a second category, let's say fantasy and magic for now. And this is another one that I recommend you browse and take your time and really make sure that you have the best 2 categories possible. And you'll click save and move on to the age range. Now, I used to think this was required, but as you can see right here, it says optional. And so it's actually better not to fill this in unless you are publishing a book that really does have a specific age range. Like for example, maybe if it's an elementary school book or a book for a 3-year-old or something like that, it would be very helpful to put that in. But since this is young adult, I'm gonna actually skip it because a lot of adults actually read young adult as well, and I wanna make sure that this is opened up to everyone. Now, this is one of my favorite sections here at the bottom is the pre-order option. And you could release your book right away if you would like to. You could keep this option checked, but typically I would recommend doing a pre-order. And what I love about this is they've actually opened it up. It used to only be 1, 2, 3 months ahead, but now I believe it's as far as a year out. You'll see right there. So I have a whole year, but I'm going to go ahead and choose the release date that I chose, which is December 5th. And once you've selected a release date, it will actually tell you when you need to submit your final files, which is also extremely helpful. And this little countdown will be linked at the top of every page once you go ahead and confirm your pre-order. All right, that was the details page. Now we're on to the content page, and the first section is your manuscript. And you can always read more about their guidelines and the file types they accept, but the first section is digital rights management. And so this is something that I've done both. I've checked yes, I've checked no, but once the book is published, you can't change it. So whatever you decide to choose here, just make sure that you feel comfortable with it. I typically do enable digital rights management personally, but it's really up to you. Then we come to your actual manuscript file. And this is something that I'm really thankful that they've changed, is that you don't have to have your final file ready if you don't have one. In the past, if you were setting up a pre-order and your book wasn't done, you could upload a dummy file, but that was a little bit risky because I always was worried that that would be the file that would get published. So instead of clicking, yes, I have a file, and uploading your book as it is currently, you can wait till it's done and click, no, I'll upload the file that I want customers to receive later, as long as it's before this deadline that they give you based on your release date. So I have all the way till December 1st to upload my manuscript. The next section is your cover, and I have a whole playlist about book covers. You can watch my DIY playlist if you want to upload a temporary cover. You could actually use their cover creator option right here to make something temporary as well. But as you can see, their options are not great. And so I'm going to click this right here to go back in the top left corner, because I personally do not like the options in the cover creator. So I would always recommend uploading a cover you already have. And that's what we're going to do now. I just selected my cover, and it does take a minute for it to upload. See how it says processing, but it will appear here shortly. There you go. It just auto-populated. Look at that. It's gorgeous. And then this next section is your preview. And you can't actually preview it. You can't launch the previewer right now because I didn't upload a manuscript. But once you have uploaded your file, you click yes, you upload your ebook manuscript right here. Then you would want to always click launch previewer and scroll through every page to make sure that it looks really good and it looks the way you wanted it to. But right now, we're going to skip that option and move on to the ISBN, which is the last one on this page. An ISBN number is your International Standard Book Number. And the nice thing is that on Amazon, you don't have to have this. They actually apply what's called an ASIN number, your Amazon Standard International Book Number. But essentially, your ISBN is what I like to think of as your book's fingerprint. And so when it comes to paperbacks and hardcovers, you will need to have an ISBN, but Amazon does offer a free one if you'd like. And you can research ISBNs more if you're interested, but keep in mind that it is optional. So for our ebook, we're actually going to skip it. The publisher is also optional, but I have a publishing company called Grace House Press. It's specifically for my books only. I created it for myself so that I could be my own publisher. So I'm going to enter the company name here because I have one, and then click save and continue. All right, we're on the third and final page, which is pricing, but there's actually a couple other things on this page as well before we actually get to the price. So here at the top is KDP Select. And if you are an Amazon reader and you happen to be enrolled in Kindle Unlimited, that's what this is. And so this is the author side right here, KDP Select. So you could opt to enroll your book into KDP Select by clicking this option, and then readers in Kindle Unlimited would be able to get your book through Kindle Unlimited. There's a lot more that you can read up on here. If you want to know how to enroll or just learn more about KDP Select, I would recommend you click those, but I do not enroll my fiction in KDP Select at the moment, so I'm going to leave that box unchecked. Then we have territories. And so if you, say, had a publishing contract with a publishing company who owned some of the rights to your book, you might still be able to publish to other territories outside of where your publisher is publishing. If you have the rights to all territories, I would recommend clicking all territories. If you want to know more, again, they have tons of information here where you can click these boxes if you want to know more. Then your primary marketplace, this is typically where you live. So I'm in the US, which means Amazon.com, but you have a bunch of other options here if you think your primary readers would be in a different Amazon marketplace. And now we're finally at pricing, royalty, and distribution. And you can see this is a very big section here because we have a lot of different Amazon stores. But what we're going to do is start at the very top with an important thing, your royalties. This means how much money you make from the books. Amazon gives you two options for ebooks at the moment, 35% or 70%. Always check 70% if it's an option. You want to be making the most you possibly can on your book. But there are a couple instances where you won't be allowed to check that 70% option, and that is if your book is under $2.99 or over $9.99. So let's give you an example. We'll start with $2.99 and click enter, and it will give you a breakdown of your royalties. So first of all, for an ebook, there's a delivery fee, and this is a very high number. Once we upload a manuscript, it typically goes down quite a bit. I've seen it more around 10 cents typically for a typical book and a typical file that Amazon is used to. And we are at 70% royalties. That's the box we checked up here. So it's going to tell you you're going to make $1.59 per book right now, but that's because all they have to base that on is your price that you set here. If the delivery fee goes down, your royalty will go up a little bit. A lot of my books are $3.99 on Amazon, so there you go. It just auto-calculated a new royalty right here. But keep in mind that if I did want to do $1.99 right here, you'll see that it won't let me unless I change my royalty down to 35%. And now there's no delivery fee, but it is 35% instead, which means I'm only making 70 cents per book. So you can play with this. You can see what a 99-cent book would look like if you were to put it on sale, or you could price your ebook really high. I wouldn't recommend doing this. It's very uncommon unless you are in a really unique genre. Otherwise, you usually see ebooks under $9.99. But if you do change it back after you've been playing around, always remember to go back to the top and select your 70% royalty, because otherwise they won't automatically put it back to that for you and you'll be making less. Just something to keep in mind. But once you've set a price that you feel comfortable with, then you can scroll down and see that it automatically changed the price in its other markets. If you wanted to, you could go in and update them to make them 99 cents like this, but you don't have to. That's just something you could consider doing if you wanted to, or you could just leave everything else as is. And then here you'll notice the book lending section actually has nothing for us to do because it's locked. And the reason it's locked is that any title with a 70% royalty option is required to be enrolled. So if you really didn't want this, that could be another reason to check the 35% box. Last but not least, we have our pre-order terms. So if you want to, you can click this button and read up on it, but essentially you're confirming that you have the rights to the book, you have the rights to sell it. And once you feel good about everything you've set up in these 3 sections, that is when you would click submit for pre-order. Or if you're not doing a pre-order, you would click publish. I'm not quite ready to submit this yet, so I'm instead going to click save as draft. Now let's go back to our bookshelf, because I promised you I would show you how to also set up a print version and connect the two. So the really cool thing about KDP is that once you've set up one of the 3 types of books, you can actually just click to transfer almost all of that information over to another format of the book, and it will automatically link the books. But if you happen to create a second format using this button and you filled it all in manually, then you could also click link the existing paperback or link the existing hardcover, and that would also link the books for you as well. So let's go ahead and click create paperback. We have the same 3 sections on the top: details, content, and rights and pricing, but we're going to have a little bit more to fill out when we get to the content section. So you can see it already pulled in language, book titles, series, edition number, author, contributors, description, publishing rights, keywords, and categories all automatically. The only thing that's new is this section right here, which is adult content, and it just asks, does this book contain language, situations, or images inappropriate for children under 18? And I clicked no. All we had to do is click save and continue, and now we're on to the content page. And this is where things really start to look different. Remember how I talked about ISBNs back with the ebook and how they weren't required? Well, they are required for a print book. And so you can just choose to have KDP assign you a free ISBN, or if you happen to purchase them through a website called Bowker in the US or somewhere else if you're in a different country, then you could go ahead and enter the ISBN that you personally own here. Now, I did purchase ISBNs in the past and I happen to have one left, so I'm going to go ahead and use my own ISBN for this book, but you could definitely click the free ISBN, and I've done this for many books of mine as well. And it of course allows me to include my own imprint, aka my own publishing company name here as well. This is a personal decision, so definitely think about it. That's for a different video, but let's move on to the publication date. And it says optional here, but actually you can't fill the section out. If I try to click on this, it's not going to let me, because it's actually going to fill this in for you when your book is officially published. Because again, KDP doesn't let you do a pre-order for a print copy at this time. So let's just scroll on to the next option, which is the print options. And this is where the biggest changes happen. You have a lot of choices to make here. There are 4 different types of paper. I noticed that in young adults, cream paper is typically preferred, and so for this series I think I might go ahead and switch, even though my personal preference is white paper. But we're going to go ahead and match genre expectations and switch to cream paper for this series. And it might not seem like a big deal, but what you choose can actually affect the size of the spine, because the different papers are actually different thicknesses. So just keep that in mind. You will want to tell your cover designer which one you selected, and then you want to stick with that. Don't change it after the fact. Next, you'll have your trim size. So this is the actual size of the book. Now 6x9 is the automatic choice, but for my genre it's typically more like 5x8, so I'm going to switch to that. And if you need to, you can also scroll through these. Keep in mind that the size of your book will be locked in once you press publish. You won't be able to change it, so do a little bit of research if you need to and make sure that you like the size you chose. And then let's move on to bleed settings, which there's a little explanation here, but for most books you don't have to use this unless you have images that you want to stretch all the way to the edge of the pages and not have any white space showing. So for example, maybe you want to include a map and have that stretch all the way, which I have done and I'm considering doing for this book. So I'm going to click yes, I want to try bleed if I have a map. If I change my mind, as long as I change it before publishing, I can switch back to no bleed. But once you publish, this is also locked in. No bleed is definitely easier if you want to save yourself a headache, but if you are comfortable doing the work to figure out how to do bleed and research, again, you can click learn more and figure out how to do this. You definitely can. And then we have our cover finish. So KDP supports glossy as well as matte covers. You would typically want to choose what's most common in your genre. In my genre, I typically see matte covers, so I'm going to leave it clicked on matte. Once again, we are at the manuscript option, but here you'll notice that you do not have the option to skip it. You have to upload something before you're allowed to move on to the pricing step. I had to come back for this next section because I didn't have the book done at the time of recording, but now, as you can see, I have put in the final manuscript, a PDF file, because if you try to use a Word file, it will be extremely wonky and you will have a lot of issues. So always choose PDF if you can. And then as you can see, it says I use the cover creator, but actually my cover designer, Mandy, designed this entire cover, but she designed it for the Barnes & Noble specifications. So what I ended up doing is, instead of asking her to do the work of making a second version for KDP, I just popped this version to the cover creator and I ordered a proof copy, so we'll see if it works, but eventually I will be asking her and paying her for the full cover file. But now when I click launch preview, as you can see here, it's going to easily launch the book, and there's just one little issue which I'll show you in a second, but you can see everything is within the lines, which is very important. This white line represents where they're most likely going to cut, but you still want to have the image extend past that, and then this red line is what they want all text and graphics to be inside of that, just in case it also happened to be cut off. So everything looks great because, again, my cover designer made this. The last thing I need is she's going to give me the title PNG file to match the new cover font for both that page and this page, as well as for my name. But honestly, it still looks awesome. You just got a sneak peek at my dedication there, that I've never done a dedication before. I like to go through and check every single page, so that's something that I highly recommend that you do. And I also order a proof copy of the physical book, which I'll show you in a second. So as long as you feel it's good, click approve right here. And then the very last section is now the summary of everything that you've chosen. So you'll see it has my ink and paper type, my bleed settings. I picked no bleed. I picked the matte finish, 5x8, and there are 261 pages in this book. So that all pulled together allows them to give me the final printing cost right here. Okay, now let's go back to the original video and move on to the pricing page. You're going to recognize a lot of this from the ebook. We have the territories, marketplace that's primary for you, and your pricing, royalty, and distribution page all look pretty similar. The only difference here is your royalties on the side are going to be different for print copies. So for Amazon, your royalty is 60% for a paperback. And if you wanted to do expanded distribution, which you can read more about if you'd like, then it is going to be 40% royalty rate. And to find out what that actually looks like, let's type in an average number, like for example, $12.99. It's going to cost $3.09 to print this particular book. When I upload the final book, the file will probably be a little different, and this number will also be a little bit different. But it gives you a general idea, and then they're going to tell you what your royalty rate is here and what it would be if you did expanded distribution. So that's actually really awesome, and this is one of the reasons that I love when people order paperbacks, because typically the royalty is higher. And it depends on your genre, but maybe it's a newer book, so you get to price it a little bit higher. You could actually make a fairly good royalty. But keep in mind, whenever you raise the price, you do also make it a little bit less likely that some people will buy. And so you could potentially go quite a bit lower as well for a lower royalty, but maybe more people will be interested in buying. This is a strategy you can definitely do your research on and compare to other books in your genre. But I do want to point out that there's once again a minimum and a maximum here, and this is based on your book's printing costs. So it just makes sure that there is at least enough money coming in for it to cover the cost of printing the book. So let's go ahead and plug that in and show you what that looks like. If we did the minimum price, you would make $0 because Amazon still wants their cut as well. So typically I'm going to guesstimate this might be a $13.99 book. And then I just wanted to show you how it auto calculates that price down to all the other vendors again, just like with the ebook. And once again, it has a terms and conditions section. But here it's important to notice that it takes up to 72 hours for your book to be available for purchase on Amazon. And prior to that, it will be in review on your bookshelf. So two really important things to know. Number one, when you press this publish button, it becomes locked in. In review means it's locked. You will not be able to make any changes. So do not press this button until you're absolutely ready and you have the final product. It's really important to know, and it's not a pre-order like an ebook. Once you press publish, it will be published as is. So keep that in mind and make sure that you have everything finalized before you click this button, because once it's put into review, you can't change anything and it will be locked until it's published. The second thing I want to point out is it says it takes up to 72 hours, so do make sure that you give yourself that wiggle room. If you have a specific release day where you want this book to be out on, I would definitely publish 72 hours before, but it almost never actually takes that long. I've never experienced it taking 72 hours unless there was an error in the document that I uploaded. Otherwise, I've almost always seen it being approved within a few hours to a day. So keep in mind that the book will probably go live sooner than that, but typically people won't find it unless you tell them about it, so that's totally fine. Again, I do not want to publish this, so I'm going to click Save as Draft and then go back to the bookshelf where you'll be able to see that now we have two versions of the book in draft mode. We have the ebook and the paperback, and if we wanted to, we could also create a hardcover right here. Last but not least, I want to point out these three dots on the side because it allows you to go to each of those three sections that we went through in this walkthrough individually and go directly to those pages, as well as enroll in KDP Select, manage a series, unlink the books if you linked them by accident, or to delete a book if you feel like it was made in error. So there you have it. That is how you upload a book to KDP, both ebook and print copies. And if you are interested in checking out my book, I will definitely link it below for you so you can go check it out, because by the time this video goes live, it will be live on Amazon, and this is what it looks like, so you can actually see what your hard work looks like after you've officially clicked the pre-order button and it goes live on Amazon. I hope this video was helpful for you and that you appreciated getting to see a real life version of what it looks like to upload a book and all the changes that they've made since I last did my video right here. Again, if you have any questions, I really recommend checking out this help button right here at the top. There's so much helpful info on KDP. They walk you through literally everything and answer almost all questions that you can come up with. And if you ever couldn't find something here on the side after you look through, and they really do have literally almost everything, you can always click contact as well. I mention that because people like to ask me questions, and I don't work for KDP, so typically I don't know the answer any more than you guys do. I use the help button as well all the time. So I hope this video was helpful for you and that you have an awesome day and enjoy uploading your book to be published. I'll talk to you guys again soon. Bye. It started out like a movie scene.